Peter Jones, you're getting some reach and frequency with insider interviews. Welcome back.
Oh, thanks for having me, Evie. Glad to be here.
It's good to see you again. We're going to get into your impressive background, but some folks might remember you from being on with me just a few months ago when we were in the warmth of Miami at Possible. This time around, we're going to talk a little bit about context and what that means for local advertising. We're also going to touch on a bunch of other C words like curation and community, but most important to what you do, connected TV, because it's like a whole new ball game, right? And I mean that literally, ball game. Yeah, we're going to get into sports too. All right. This is Insider Interviews with media marketing and advertising experts like Peter Jones from Premion. So before we dive into you, Peter, let's talk about what I mean by context and what's happening with CTV and advertising overall.
It's always exciting in the CTV space. You know, it moves extremely fast, and you know we're seeing double-digit growth with CTV. Year over year continues to do that. As for consumer, still a ton of options. I mean, sometimes we kind of get lost. There's a very fragmented landscape out there for us having to navigate it, but that means a great opportunity for advertisers to get in front of those consumers. You're probably going to hear some rumors around M&A activity. You know, we're going to see a political resurgence next year. Then obviously something I'm, close to my heart is the live sports activity that we're seeing, in Q4 around NFL and college football. So it's a lot of fun things that are going on in the CTV space.
And Peter, I want to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit better than I can about what you do, because I know that day in and day out, you're really helping advertisers navigate all of that CTV stuff, especially the local landscape, and you're trying to make it easier for them. So discuss. How do you describe you and Premion?
Well, thanks, Evie. And Premion, we've been doing this for 9 years, almost going on 10 years, helping local advertisers, businesses, regional agencies navigate this extremely fragmented CTV landscape. And the great thing is, like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of options. There's a lot of opportunity for them to get in front of the consumers through a lot of different platforms, but we have to continue to educate. They have to be willing to adapt, stay with the broadcasters, stay with our partners on the inventory, data, and measurement tools that they're able to leverage for their advertisers or for our partners in the space. And so we continuously do that through all of our publisher partners, all of our data providers, and some of our ad tech that we have in-house in our tech stack.
And you're like the big cheese of revenue. You're the head of revenue at Premion, right?
I am, but I like to say is I have a lot of bosses because all of our agencies, all of our brands, I'm trying to help them and support them on what all their goals.
I'm glad that you know where your bread is buttered, Peter. But you also said a really good keyword in there, too. You talked about education. And this is just such a crazy time. Everything's shifting, et cetera. And I know, especially from navigating your site, education is really important to Premion and to helping advertisers do that a little bit better. So I want to ask you, what does it mean these days for small and mid-sized businesses, or SMBs, as we call them, getting into that local advertising space? And then what does it mean for national advertisers who are kind of, competing with them?
Well, I mean, the first thing is that for the local advertisers to realize that big tech, and this kind of goes back to search and social days, has leveled the playing field. I'm stealing one of your sports puns there.
Okay.
Leveled the playing field for the local advertisers. So they can, acquire inventory on a lot of these streaming platforms within their local markets, within their communities to reach their local customers, leveraging the same data partners, leveraging the same, measurement and attribution tools that some of the big national brands are using, for obviously their nationwide campaigns. So all those tools and all those capabilities are available for the local advertisers to the mid-sized regional agencies and on up.
That's pretty great. So like the car dealership group, the furniture store guy, they can compete with the McDonald's and the Ford corporate.
Absolutely, they can.
Wow.
in their
Okay.
local market where they're trying to hone in on. Yes.
Right,
absolutely.
right. But then they might not be sometimes as sophisticated as a national advertiser. So again, that's where the education comes in. You wrote something recently that I really liked. It was an ad exchanger, and I'm going to read this actually. You said, consumers don't experience media in silos. Now, this is really key. Now we're talking about how we consume content, right? And you wrote, consumers might stream a live game on their TV, scroll social feeds during halftime, and research products on their mobile device later that night. So true. So that seems like a really big challenge for advertisers, having to be everywhere. So how do you speak to them about that, and how do you help them be everywhere? He's everywhere. He's everywhere.
I mean, exactly. And I might put a little asterisk on that paragraph. I mean, it's, some of us are on our social feeds during the sporting event, to kind of talk
Yes.
about what's going on within the sporting event. And so that advertiser, they have to be responsible for following that customer journey or that consumer wherever they are. You've probably heard the term, or I believe we talked about it at Possible, the Omnichannel strategy. Yep. And so you can't just rely on one media or one creative or one message from one tactic. You can serve that message on CTV, but then how are you going to follow them when they're on their mobile device? Do you have retargeting? Do you have a display ad? Do you have a pre-roll or short form creative that's ready to target that same user on a different device in a different experience, so that you are capturing them regardless of where they are? And that's the great thing about being with Premion, is that, like, we can help the local advertiser or the regional business or regional agency leverage the same technology to do just that and drive outcomes. And I'm going to say it, I'll probably say it a couple more times during our conversation.
Okay.
It's all about the outcomes over impressions.
You did say that back in May. You love that, outcomes over impressions. And that implies that you're going to sell what they need to buy, basically, to deliver against their goals, right? Is that another way to put it?
Absolutely. And, anything that we do in life, if you can't measure it if you don't set a goal, or if you're not trying to obtain something. So, for any advertiser or any agency, like, just have a goal. If it's reach and frequency, well, at least you have a goal you're trying to measure against, so that you know that, hey, is this being successful? Or if you're trying to drive website traffic because you're a local business, or you're trying to drive brand awareness because you're a bigger brand and you may not have the same type of presence you do in some markets as you do others. Brand lift studies, sales transactions, like, all these are different goals or KPIs that could be leveraged. But if you're not measuring, then how do you know how well it's performing? And that's why I cannot stress enough that agencies, advertisers have to take advantage of the tools that are available to them in order to measure these outcomes and know what their ad dollars are doing for them.
All right, then, Peter, what are some of those tools? How are you helping them measure? Because it's pretty challenging these days. We're very fractionalized, even in our measurement services. What's different at Premion, or what do you advise?
You have to start knowing who your customer is. And as soon as you can leverage that, we know what data we have to leverage data to target.
Okay.
Right. So if you know your customer, and we can talk about first-party data as well, because that's a whole nother conversation, but leverage your first-party data and third-party to build that overall omnichannel approach. But yes, target the right customer, and then what are you trying to measure? Are you a new brand that's trying to reach as many of those customers as possible? Let's start with a reach goal based on what you can forecast within your local market, or what your zip codes or what your DMA is that you're targeting. Are you trying to get website traffic? Are you trying to generate leads? Like I mentioned, the sales transaction, all of that we can track. Some of it does require pixel placement. Nowadays, that's table stakes for a local business. They've probably had a pixel placed before, whether it's for like GA4 or any type of analytics set that they're using to measure their website traffic. If they're leveraging it for any type of sales data, they're going to need a pixel placement, but that's something we can help them walk through. That is key to seeing what those outcomes are driving and how to measure your overall media mix.
Okay.
So that's definitely critical.
And that basically means that you're putting a little bit of code that's following the consumer wherever they go from place to place, and you can identify that.
You can place a pixel on your website. So if someone visits the website, you can retarget them. We've all been retargeted in ad before of a website that we've been to, but that pixel also allows you to serve a different message to them. It allows you to see sales transaction data. If you have an e-commerce site, someone can make a purchase. If they visited your site, if they've left and gone someplace else, we can do brand lift without even placing a pixel. Just seeing how many people, based off like survey data, if they recognize your brand or how your brand may compare to another brand within the local market or within multiple markets or states, just to see how it's performing. Okay. A lot of different tools or tactics that are out there. Sorry, okay. I could keep going on, so you just got to tell me to get on my soapbox.
But this is why you're back again, and I think you're going to have to come back again, as you mentioned, like we'll do a deeper dive into first and third party data, et cetera. But I learned something every time you're here, so thank you so much for the course correction. But that does remind me of something that seems pretty important, which is creative. How does creative and, outcomes, how do those two get married, and how are they interdependent if they are?
I'll start by saying I don't want any advertisers or agencies to be scared of creative. I know there's a bunch of creative shops out there, but now there's obviously tools where they can build out different creative for different messages based off of the user that they're trying to target, or maybe it's a follow-up creative. And I'll use a big word, sequential messaging. If they see the ad on CTV and then they go online, they might see a different ad that kind of goes along with the story that you're telling. There's a lot of AI tools that are available now where you can build different creative sets, not at a very high cost. So I don't want brands or agencies to be scared of the creative term. But creative is going to help drive that outcome, back to your main question. And obviously leveraging the right creative to the right audience on the right media is what's going to help drive a higher outcome or a higher return on ad spend, ROAS, from that media. So it's critical to have that right creative. Message to market match is a phrase that we've used in the past. Make sure you have the right message going to the right market, and it needs to match to drive that outcome.
Okay. And so that is, I'm guessing, much more possible these days, especially with some help of AI, like the old versioning that, shops had to do over and over. I'm guessing it's a little bit more turnkey to marry that message to the right time and place.
I could see different ads in my experience being, a male with two daughters than you might see, being a female, in your experience. So obviously you want a different message to those individuals. So
you probably watch more sports than I do. I don't want to make assumptions. Go Birds and all that. But let's get into a little bit about the sports talk. There's some news out of Premion, but I want to set the stage for the fact that there's been a lot of shifts going on in the sports world. I mean, we look at MLB and sort of the shifting or even collapsing of regional sports networks. How is Premion able to take advantage of that and really help advertisers cheer for their hometown team?
Well, it's exciting now more than ever that the inventory is being made available programmatically. Now, there's going to continue to be the fight over the different leagues and the different games, and obviously different platforms are going to have different games, and we're agnostic. Like we don't care about what platform the game is being served on. We just want to be able to have access to that game and provide that access to the advertiser or to the agency so that they can take advantage of it. I think that with our publisher partners recognizing the demand for it in the local market, and those local advertisers and agencies are now able to take advantage of it, that their brands and their local names get to be in the same live events as some of the big national brands. It helps their perception, it helps their credibility. It aligns themselves with their local community and engage with that fan base. It's really exciting for the brands and the agencies that, before it was either too expensive or some of the deals were too complicated or they couldn't afford it. So it's definitely exciting now. I think you're going to see more of that available in the future, which really, I'm really excited to see how we can make it even more advantageous for some of the local advertisers and agencies.
That's very cool. And so your programmatic live sports offering, that's relatively new?
We actually announced it, I believe, earlier this summer, right
Okay.
after possible, actually.
Oh, I missed
And
that breaking news then. Okay.
and so we did build out a UI. It is a simple programmatic tool that a local advertiser or agency could leverage. It allows them access to a lot of those sporting events they didn't have before. And we think we're just going to continue to build upon that. It's been well received and some pretty good fanfare behind it. So I think we're going to see a lot more action from it. And hopefully we'll see some more inventory come available from some of these big networks. And I'm going to give a shout out to my Yellow Jackets. I'm a big college football fan, so
Okay.
go Jackets.
Right.
Hopefully it'll be a good rivalry weekend next week.
Okay. It doesn't compete with my birds. So, all right. I want to talk a little bit more about another C word, curation. And that's thrown around a lot with y'all at Premion. What does that mean? And how is that helping advertisers?
I'm going to put a small adjective in front of that. Let's talk about smart curation. Anyone can curate a lot of inventory or a lot of different data providers. The smart curation is leveraging the data to determine which inventory set or which providers to go with to help drive the outcomes that you're looking for. So using that smart curation is really what's going to help the local markets deliver the best results, the best ROAS on their media spend. And we take that off the hands of the agencies or the brands or the local advertisers having to do that. We have the publisher partners that we know are going to work best for them. We're forecasting what avails are going to be, in their market to their specific audience, and also we can measure on the back end. So we kind of do all the heavy lifting for them, so they can execute that within our platform.
Okay. So it seems like you've got all of the puzzle pieces and you're kind of putting them all together. We're making a local picture. So now you can really embrace sports more. You're guiding them and educating them. Measurement is coming together for local. Where does full funnel live with Premion? How are you doing, everything from awareness down to connecting to the sale? And do you have any examples of success stories?
Full funnel, really, it's depending on the advertiser budget and what they're focused on and their goals. So we're executing full funnel right now. So if you're at the top and you just want brand awareness, we have bigger brands that are leveraging our platform to help hit a bigger audience or a bigger reach. Just looking at the data set, saying, "Hey, I want max exposure to as many households as possible. I can get my message in front of." And then as we move down that funnel, you layer in some more tactics. So you can do mid-funnel with your data targeting, looking at brand lift or looking at website traffic, and then you can go low funnel where you're looking at transaction data or how many sales did a car dealership have from their campaign. So absolutely full funnel depending on what the needs are of the business.
I understand that because you actually service, I don't know, more than 200 markets, I think. You've got like a ton of sellers all over the country. So you definitely have that, top of funnel capability, et cetera. And I know that you have measured actual transactions or footfall or what have you. What are some examples of success stories? Pick any part of the funnel.
Sure. I mean, obviously, one of the largest verticals, in the advertising space is automotive. And so we work with multiple tier 2 and obviously a lot of tier 3 dealers. But on the tier 2 side, a lot will start with that kind of full funnel, the big, large brand message, in multi-market. Then as you kind of go down that funnel, they're going to layer on different tactics because maybe a couple markets aren't performing as well as other markets, or there's a couple areas where they need to show a little bit more love to those markets since the sales aren't as high as they should be. And so we'll layer on some additional tactics, kind of going more that mid to lower funnel to see, okay, well, now we're driving some more sales from this market, or what models or makes and models are we not moving in this area that we are in a different market. And then we can tie back those actual sales transaction data and say, okay, well, you move this many SUVs or this many, sedans in each market. And then from then you're using data-driven decisions from that campaign to build out, okay, well, next quarter or next month, now we know the tactics that we have to implement in order to drive those same results.
What other verticals are really embracing this? I mean, obviously automotive is one. I'm guessing maybe
Retail.
Yeah,
We're going
retail.
we're going into the holiday season.
Yep.
Obviously retailers are gearing up. I can already tell you I'm seeing a ton of ads already showing up on social right now.
Yep.
Obviously they're doing stuff on Linear. They're doing it on CTV. So you're gonna see that all the way through the holidays. But retail is obviously a huge adopter to the CTV space and leveraging all parts of the funnel when it comes to anything within our DSP.
And you know what happens right after holiday? Big game season.
Oh, yeah. Then we're just getting
Yes.
into the playoffs, and looking forward to it. It's going to
Yeah, I know you are. But obviously, that's a slew of opportunity for sports advertisers. I'm guessing you can turn things around pretty quickly, too, even though planning sometimes is farther out. You could drop
especially for the big games. When we talk about live sports, and this is where we have to educate a lot of the agencies and brands on, is that those big games we can't. Sometimes it's hard to forecast. Sometimes we can't forecast what type of impression levels they're going to be. I mentioned earlier I'm a Georgia Tech fan. Well, we were undefeated up until about, was that 2 or 3 weeks ago? So there was probably a lot more demand in the way that a lot of the college football, I know NFL is different, but a lot of the college works is some of those games or the time of the day or what the game of the week is aren't even determined until a week before or 2 weeks before. So it's hard for us leading up to those games knowing exactly what type of impressions are going to be available. So it's very dynamic in the live sports arena. So I just need to add that kind of asterisk there for any advertiser or agency that's looking at kind of diving into it.
Got it. So they have to be ready to tee up. Yeah. Okay.
There's your sports
yeah.
fund.
Come on now. So just a couple more questions. It sounds like you're a pretty good partner. I love talking to Premion because you are such a good educator. But what are some of the other things, especially if you're an SMB, a small to mid-sized business, and you're really looking for a CTV partner? What should they be thinking about? What should they be looking for in someone who's going to help them?
Well, I'll do a quick plug for our friends over at TAG, the Trustworthy Accountability Group. We've been partnered with them since I believe about 2018. They're trying to combat any type of fraud that's going on within the digital space. We love what they do and kind of have their stamp of approval on how we source our inventory, how we're going to market. So always look for that TAG seal of approval. The three things that all agencies and advertisers should measure a partner on when it comes to CTV or even the omnichannel tactics are their inventory data and measurement.
Inventory data and measurement.
So how are they leveraging inventory mix? Now, personally, if we're looking for a performance-based type of campaign, like we want to look at outcomes over impressions, you have to be agnostic.
Yep.
You have to be agnostic to the inventory. We all have our favorites. We all have our favorite show or platform that we watch. What doesn't mean that audience does or that customer that you're going after does. There's a lot of different options that are out there. So let the data show you where that audience is watching, where the eyeballs are, and the outcomes are going to tell us.
Okay.
Then we're making those optimizations based off what the data is saying, not based off of a personal preference or, I like this show that's on this platform.
Right. And so easy to do if you are not being objective as a buyer or a planner. Let Premion guide you to the right destination.
And that's the change in behavior. That's the change in behavior.
It is
we're used to buying program specific or news specific. So it has been a shift.
Yeah, we all need to learn to cross divides these days and look at things from fresh perspectives, right?
Absolutely.
Now, the other thing that you did talk about at Possible was you had seen something. This was 6 months ago now. But you had seen something really cool, which was sponsored AI chatbots. So you'd ask for a hotel recommendation or something, and whatever the AI bot would give you a list, but then it would say, and consider, X hotel brand. I thought that was really interesting. So what have you seen recently that's on your very cool list in the industry in general? What's floating your boat these days?
I'll do two. Now, I will touch on AI again. I know
Okay.
I feel like we hear that almost every single day in this space. But as it's getting smarter, so remember, it's ML, machine learning. We're looking at how it's learning campaigns. So the AI has to learn from our historical campaigns. And before it creates a decision engine, if you will. The decision is making like behind your biz, behind your optimization. It has to learn from the campaign.
Okay.
But seeing how fast that can move, and this is coming from my side of the business, it's going to be a game changer. I had a question in an earlier interview where it's like, where do you see this in the next 5 years? 5 years is forever in this space. I mean, we're looking at 12 months might even be a long time, but I think you're going to see this space accelerate as far as how much it leverages AI, ML in this decision engine on behind the scenes. So I'm hoping for the advertiser and for the agency, what happens is they're going to see a better return on investment or ROAS from their media spend. And the way that we're measuring this, and this is what we can see now, it's a little bit more manual, it's not as automated, but we can look at, well, how much does a cost per lead or cost per transaction cost this month? Okay, well, what about next one?
Wow.
Next month, and the month after. So then you're looking at a trend and you're trying to improve that efficiency of the campaign over time. That's how it's going to benefit the end advertiser and agency and brand over time. It's just by making it more efficient with their media spend.
Very cool. And are you using it personally? AI at home?
Almost every day. Absolutely.
All right, that's
From
why.
your ChatGPT to your Gamma for presentations, there's a lot of cool tools out there. So I definitely encourage an advertiser or business owner how they can help their just day-to-day workload and simplify just their everyday processes.
Yes, I'll use the double negative. You can't not use it. So, Peter Jones, you answered my last question in the previous one about where we might be in 5 years, which is supersonic speed. So with that, I will thank you so much for educating us once again on what's happening in local advertising. You're just a champ, and I am going to ask you to come back and we'll talk about first and third party data another time. Okay?
Well, absolutely. Evie, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Peter. So just to wrap it up, I hope you got some good insider scoop from this episode of Insider Interviews, and I would love it if you would share, like, comment, review, or maybe even donate to buymeacoffee.com/mossappeal if you want to tip me for this. And I also want to thank John Clayton for composing my theme music, Jim Mullen for being producer extraordinaire, and you for listening, watching, following Insider Interviews wherever you get good B2B content.